Good afternoon. First of all, let me tell you where I come from. I've been a journalist for many years, more than 30 years. 18 of them, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, I've been a journalist for more than 30 years, 18 of them in television. I was with CNBC TV 18 for all my television life. I quit in 2012 and I've been working on a website. I've set up a website called smartindianagriculture.in. This is more of a blogging site than a website because I'm the only person who writes on that site. Though I've asked scientists, agricultural practitioners, experts to write, but I find that none of them contributes. So I've written about 330 articles, and most of this, I would say 95% of those articles are from the countryside. I go to rural areas and I report. I support genetically modified agriculture. This is why it has dried up. But the aim is to present a correct view, in my opinion, a correct view of genetically modified agriculture, as well as to promote science in agriculture. I've not been following agriculture. I was not following agriculture very carefully until I set up this website. And in the past 2 years that this website has been there, I've been scouring the newspapers, television, not so much television, websites and newspapers very closely, and I find that last year, for example, the coverage of agriculture in the media had definitely increased, and I think this is because of the deficient rainfall in many parts of the country. I'm talking about 2015, 2016. Of course, last year there was good rainfall. Much of our coverage is gloom and doom, is about gloom and doom. We do not look at the vibrancy in the countryside, and I think a lot of things are happening in the countryside. Farmers are entrepreneurial, and we do not capture it. There are many reasons for it. One is, I think, traditionally in India, our newspapers have not focused on news gathering. Our news gathering budgets are very, very small, and they are a residual activity. There's no focus, institutional focus on anything, whether it is investigative journalism or anything for that matter. It all depends on the enterprise of the individual reporter, unless of course the media organization has a particular interest in which of course it will pour in all the resources. For example, if you want to expose Antule, or if you want to do something, if there is some agenda, but otherwise I think it mostly depends on the enterprise of the individual reporter. Going to the countryside costs a lot of money. Newspapers can afford it. Newspaper groups like the Times of India have got huge amounts of money. It's one of the richest, not only media groups, but a corporate group in the country. But you'll find that the owner, Vineet Jain, saying that, telling the New Yorker that we are in the advertising business. I don't think any self-respecting newspaper owner, whether it's New York Times or Washington Post, will say, we are in the advertising business. So for them, it's just a question of grabbing eyeballs. And when you talk about grabbing eyeballs, what happens is all these things about soil and all that, doesn't matter. That said, I also blame the scientists because they are never forthcoming. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research, IARI, you can beg them, you can fall at their feet. None of them wants to write. None of them wants to write. For example, there's so much of talk about pesticide residues. So I called up, there's the All India coordinated project on the pesticide residues. Now they've got a completely different view. They have done a sample of more than 1 lakh samples they have got over 8 years, and they are saying that our pesticide residue levels are very low. They're lower than in Europe, they're lower than in USA or in Brazil, and it stands to reason because we use less pesticides per capita. Okay, farmers cannot afford it, but this is all the data they have now. I'm not going to quibble with that data. If I tell people, they do not believe it. Obviously, there's some trust deficit is there. Now it's up to the ICAR to come out in the media and disabuse people of whatever notions they have, or invite their, find out why there is so much of a trust gap and bridge it. That is not being done. Now, there's so much of talk about organic. Now, I do not like all this talk about organic is good, of course. We need to respect Mother Earth, no doubt about it. I do not have that kind of reverence, but nature, after all, we cannot live beyond nature. There are environmental costs to everything, as we have noticed because of this pollution thing. We just cannot, talk about GDP and forget everything else. Though I do not have that kind of, reverential thing about nature, I also believe that, to live good lives, economic lives, productive lives, we have to take care of our natural resources. Now, on this organic thing, the Indian Institute of Farming Systems in Modipuram, they have done a study. They have studied all these various systems, biodynamic, Panchagavya, and all those kind of things. But where is the research? It's there in Modipuram. It doesn't come out. So, because Agriculture Minister Radha Mohan was talking so much about this, so I went to Modipuram in February 2015, and I asked them, and I put out an article on a website where they are saying that the food bowl areas, that is Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, where there is so much of use of chemical fertilizers, and where soils are depleted, you should move towards organic, in the sense that you use chemical fertilizers. At the same time, you try to improve the texture of the soil, the quality of the soil. Now, I did not know it. Despite being a journalist, I did not know that soil had so many different aspects to it. That is not just the chemical thing which we replenish through fertilizers, but we also have to look at the physical aspects, whether it's porous, the soil moisture retention capacity. We do not know. That is because journalists are not being educated by the scientists. They produce the research, and they, it just lies there. They do not come out. They do not have a proactive way of engaging the media. Of course, the media itself may not carry all these things, but nowadays there has been a proliferation of media products. You don't have to go to the traditional big newspapers. There are websites, there are specialist publications, and I'm sure that the Indian language publications, they have, for whom farmers are a big constituency, would definitely like to carry these articles. Similarly, 3 days before this, the Deputy Director General of ICRISAT, he sent me an email in response to an email I sent him about KV Prabhu, the Joint Director Research of ICAR, saying that we must, permit the cultivation of GM mustard. So I posted this article to him, this interview, and in response he was saying that he is going to Udaipur and he is going to talk about whether organic is sustainable. Now he says that organic is not sustainable in areas, and is quoting Western Australian University study which says that organic is not possible in rain-fed areas that receive less than 600 millimeters of rain, and where temperatures are less than 15 degrees centigrade, because the soils do not have the organic carbon content. Now he says that we must move towards, we must have organic, we must have chemical fertilizer also. This is what the Indian Institute of Farming Systems, Modipuram, had recommended, that you use chemical fertilizers, also you use farmyard manure so that you can improve the soil texture and the moisture retention capacity. In the rain-fed areas, Modipuram Institute says we can move directly to organic. So there are various studies, but these need to be brought out into the public. When I was doing a 10-part series on agriculture for CNN IBN in 2015, and I was in Punjab, I was doing something on mechanization, and accidentally someone told me about the Bodlog Institute for South Asia. So I went to that place, Rajowal. I was actually going to catch the train. Then I said, let me just spend 1 hour, there's so much of time, let me go there. And that changed the focus of my entire episode. My episode was on mechanization. I made it an episode on conservation agriculture, where it is zero till, where in the wheat rice cycle, you bring pulses to enrich the soil with the atmospheric nitrogen. You do not till the soil, you leave the stubble on the surface so that you can improve the organic carbon content. Now, this Borlaug Institute has been doing work for 4 years. No one knows about it. When we had this whole issue about stubble burning, pollution in Delhi, I wrote a series of articles in various publications, plugging conservation agriculture as a solution to stubble burning. I was telling Borlaug Institute, why don't you have a press conference in Chandigarh and tell the reporters over there that this is what needs to be done. The reporters in Chandigarh, in Punjab, they don't know about conservation agriculture. And here is an institute that has been doing work for 4 years. Now, what is the point in doing work if you are not going to engage with the media? Now, they are saying that, we will end up antagonizing the local institutes because we are an international institute. We have to, be concerned about local sensitivities. Oh, sorry?
Bulldog Institute has spoken to journalists and to institutes in Punjab and Haryana. Dr. Bros here, we've all been at various events where the Bulldog Institute people have also spoken about conservation agriculture in Punjab. So it's not that they don't know.
Madam, I was looking at this, the articles after. Are you from the Borlaug Institute or no?
No, I'm not. I've been at events where they've done this. They've spoken. It's not that they've not spoken to Punjab. They have.
They might have spoken, but they've not spoken. The voice doesn't carry. You can speak, of course, but it depends on whether it is effective or not. Because I have seen articles on paddy stubble burning, and there are very few reporters, perhaps none at all, who are talking about conservation agriculture. And even in Punjab, I think only the Sangrur collector has done some work, serious work.
Happy Cedar.
Happy Cedar, others are not doing it. Because there is also an issue about Punjab Agriculture University perhaps will not promote it because, Borlaug Institute wale kar rahe hain. And H.S. Sidhu, see, when I had gone to Viju's place in Bagli last year, I was in Indore. And then I got a call from H.S. Sidhu. He said, you come over here and, we want to talk about conservation agriculture, paddy stubble burning, this and that. But I don't think there has been, media engagement. It might be episodic. It's not been effective. You can have, I'm not saying that they have been, observing some wow of silence, not at all. I'm sure they've been talking, but they've not been talking enough. You need to amplify the message, and you yourself need to, be proactive, talk to the policymakers and convince them. You talk to farmers, they think, they don't even know about conservation agriculture. In Punjab, if you go, not many people know about Punjab conservation agriculture. Many people are skeptical about it. The NGOs themselves perhaps might not be supporting it because you have to use herbicides if you're growing rice under zero-till conditions. And many NGOs are not in favor of herbicide application, though they might be very surgical in their impact. You spoke about SRI. I went to, the Uttar Pradesh government was promoting SRI in a big way. Sorry, not the Uttar Pradesh government. The Bihar government was promoting SRI in a big way. But the Borlaug Institute guys are saying that farmers are taking the inputs provided in the SRI and they are not doing SRI at all. And a lot of data, I think, is perhaps falsified. Because the Bihar government, for example, claimed, in Nitish Kumar's constituency, there was a farmer who claimed record yields for potato from organic farming. Then he also claimed record yield for, I think, rice.
Yeah.
Now this Dr. Mohapatra of the Cuttack Institute, Central Rice Research Institute, he sent a team to verify the claims. And apparently the agriculture department officials allowed them. They do not want the right data to come out. And this has not come out because you cannot speak about it, but this is actually what happened over there. So one doesn't know whether one can trust the data put out by the state government because they themselves have an interest in exaggerating certain claims because they want to drive certain policies or schemes. So overall, what I want to say is that media interest is quite low, is more into gloom and doom. They do not capture the vibrancy of the countryside. This is mainly institutional because funding is not there. People are not, even though it doesn't cost much money and organizations can afford it, they will not send people. In the television media, agriculture does not make news unless it is sensational because that's the nature of the media. Half an hour bulletin might have 3 or 4 stories and they are in the business of catching eyeballs. So, you can talk about soil and you'll put the audience to sleep. So I don't think television or the news television is the media to address agriculture, though there might be specialist ones. The Krishi channel, for example, of Doordarshan, those guys can do it. So overall, I think one is the media side. Secondly, of course, the information is not available. I think a scientist should come out, speak more openly, and also we must shed this thing about public sector and private sector. I was at the National Seed Seminar about 3 weeks ago. All the sponsors of the private sector, the speakers were all from the government sector. And the speakers from the public sector are saying that it is the private sector that has done a commendable job of spreading seeds in the, across the country. They've done a big job, but they're not allowed to speak. They should, except for Rasi Seeds, which is one of the sponsors, none of them were there on the dais. So this is how it happens. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.